you go. Okay, we're live. Here we go. Today, I'm joined by the amazing team from Nothing Bundt Cakes over in the US. We've just been doing where is everybody? I'm in Liverpool today, but Anna Marie and Eric are over in Texas, which is slightly more glamorous. But we're really excited to share their journey that they've been having with Thrive, how they've kind of implemented Thrive as a solution, both for learning, but also communications as well, to really help their partners and franchise partners across North America. So let's start with some very, very quick introductions. Anna Marie, I'll begin with you.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us, Josh. I'm Anna Marie Samson. I head up our learning team, people and culture here at Nothing Bundt Cakes.
Thank you.
And I'm Eric Boenig, Director of Learning Development Systems and Content at Nothing Bundt Cakes.
And I guess there'll be lots of people maybe in the UK and Europe that don't know who Nothing Bundt Cakes are. I know it's huge in the US and you've won lots of awards recently, really loved by lots of your customers. Who wants to explain who you are, what you do, and what the cakes are?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So Nothing Bundt Cakes is just that. We sell bundt cakes, different flavors, different sizes, and it is a beloved brand by our fans here in the United States. We actually have about 700 bakeries, both US and Canada, and we are growing very rapidly. But our story is wonderful. We were founded by two neighbors. One of them had the cake recipe. One of them had the frosting recipe. They were good friends, and they thought they had something pretty special. We agree, and the rest is, as they say, history.
Amazing. So hundreds of locations, and it's a franchise type model, right? So that's how
right.
you're really able to engage, which is typically a harder audience to engage if you think about training and development, right? This isn't, you know, they might have to do some aspects of the training, but really you've got to engage the partners along the way, right?
That's exactly right.
And I guess within those franchises, you're going to have the people making the cakes, there's production, there's retail, there's customer service, there's management responsibilities as well. So the training's all encompassing really in terms of what you need to do.
That's it, exactly. It is each location and the community they serve is a fully functioning bakery. They bake fresh every day. They have folks there who bake, who frost by hand. We have folks whose job it is to craft and decorate the cakes. And then our front of house, we actually call them joy creators because being in our bakery is such a joyful experience. So they deal with all of our hospitality and guest interaction.
Love that. Well, let's talk about Thrive and the journey that you've been on. Obviously, we've been working together for a little while now. Let's go to what life was like prior to having Thrive in terms of platforms. Like, how did people previously connect with content and that experience before you had the solution?
Sure. So Eric, I'll let you talk a little bit about this too. But previously, we had a legacy LMS system in place. And I came over to Nothing Bundt Cakes and thought that may not be the thing that was going to take us into the future. Eric quickly followed, and then he really went down the path of finding the right modern solution for us. So Eric, I'll let you talk a little about that.
Yeah, and like you said, we weren't around with the launch of the previous system, and it was probably maybe okay for when they were there and they launched it then, but it wasn't a system that was growing as we were growing. And so also how it was really launched as this is a place that owners go to communicate. And that was really it. There was training on there, but there wasn't the idea of this is where your teams go and grow and learn what they need to do and maybe learn how to get promoted or cross-train or stuff like that. It was just a system that the owners used, and that was it.
And then when you go to market, I know it's hard doing RFPs and tenders. You go out to lots of vendors. Like, what was that approach that you took there? And how did you validate that Thrive was the right solution? Because obviously there's so many vendors in the market, right? There's hundreds of vendors that you can select from.
Yeah, so Anna Marie had actually talked to you guys before I came on, and as luck would have it, we had a delay in the launch year outside of our control. And so that really gave me the time to kind of do a mini RFP of my own. And I talked to, 5, 6, 7 vendors, some that I had, previous experience with or knowledge of at least. And you guys were the new guys. and y'all came out on top. Y'all were the ones doing what I wanted to see doing, and we ended up right where we were. So Emory had a good choice.
Nice, love that. And I guess talking about the implementation process, then, like, you select the vendor, you begin the implementation process. What does that look like? Like, what would be one tip from each of you to anybody listening who's about to embark on that journey? Like, what's some of the biggest tips and lessons learned from that perspective? Maybe if I go over to Eric first.
Sure. So I would say, I had done a migration to a new system before, and so it wasn't my first time. But I would say one thing that went really well was the collaboration with all the different departments here at Nothing Bundt Cakes that had information and documents and content on the old LMS, and going through all that content and really whittling that down to a manageable amount, which still took us 6 months to upload, but and having only the newest and greatest and most up-to-date content when we launched.
Nice.
Yeah, Josh, I think the other piece is you mentioned at the beginning, which is really about, we are a franchise model. And so each of our owners in their respective bakeries did need to come along the journey. And we are so fortunate here at Nothing Bundt Cakes that we have owners who are so committed to their teams and the growth and development of their teams. So we were starting from a place of excitement, which helps a lot, but it still changed nonetheless from a system they were used to. And even though it wasn't going to be the thing that took us into the modern day of learning, they still knew where they could get everything. So there was change involved. And so one of the things that worked really well for us is we had a pilot group, and it was a group of owners that were interested and passionate in this topic and wanted to test the technology early and help us design look and feel and where things would live and how the learning pathways would work. And so we were actually building that system. Eric was doing all the integration work and all the file upload while our owners were in there live playing with the tool. And they just gave us such rich feedback and were so helpful to us in really making it something that was going to be theirs. And so that worked super well for us. And I think the other, I'm going to give you two. The other thing, and this was Eric's brainchild, was integrating with some of our other existing systems really sped us up. So for example, integrating with our point of sale system for team member accounts made that process really smooth. Where we would have had to been having some individual actions, we just did it automatically through our point of sale due to the integration. And so if there's existing systems in place that you can hook into, that helps move things along.
And how did the content strategy evolve from what you inherited from a content strategy to what you use today? Do you have much to do in terms of building new content? Did you double down on things like curation of content? How did that work?
Yeah, that was a journey. We, in the legacy system, I think, content has to be tended to. It has to be mined and made sure it's still accurate and retired when it's not. And only the latest and greatest are there. And so we did have our work cut out for us from a content standpoint and just making sure we were coming with new and latest and greatest. But Thrive allows us to do something that our previous system did not. And that is really that learning and the flow of work and that just-in-time point of need. So if you think about in our bakery positions, if you have a baker, for example, they need some initial information. They need to go do some things. They might need to come back for something else to the system to get a troubleshooting guide or have a question, or they need to watch that video one more time on how something is made. And so just the learning pathways and that technology capability lets us do learning on the job in the position. And so our team members are just much more effective. And just the ability to go to more video-based content is so helpful, particularly when we want to make sure our cakes look and taste as great from one location to the next as we grow. That's pretty critical to the business. And so those were two things I think were really impactful.
Yeah, I remember when we first met. Sorry, go on, Eric.
I was just going to add that, in the old system, it was hard to see how many times a piece of content had been viewed, and it was impossible to see when it had been viewed, right? So you might be able to see that, oh, this piece has had 1,000 views, but you don't know if that was 4 years ago when the piece of content was uploaded, or if it was over time or what. There was just nothing. And so that's where the Thrive data really comes into play, because I can say, oh, well, this gets a hit when it goes out and then it just kind of slowly trails off and no one looks at it again.
Mm.
Or this is one that gets looked at every season, right? It kind of pops up regularly. And so that's the benefit we have now of being able to look at that kind of analytics. And we didn't have that when we were migrating. We just had to go off our gut, basically.
I guess standardization is really important for you, right? Like, especially with maintaining high levels of quality across all franchise partners, so customers get the same experience, right? And a consistent experience. So I guess content view and content management is quite critical. Well,
yeah. And then for our users, the graphical interface we have now, they can see a thumbnail of the document or piece of content, or a picture of what it is, so it's easier to find. In our old system, it was folders, just a file structure. And, there was sometimes 17 folders deep in the old system.
Well, that's a good segue, actually. Should we jump into the platform, Eric, if you want to
Sure.
share screens, and we can show everybody that's online some of the experience. So I guess this is your homepage, right? This is what you've built out for people to see the latest content, campaigns, updates, etc. Do you want to quickly guide us through that, some of the key areas, Eric?
Sure. So this is our campaign we're going right now. It's Black History Month here in the United States. And so last week, this was actually about a new product rollout we had, but now it's over. So now it's gone back to the standard one for February, which is Black History Month. Then we have our communications. This is our communications team section where they post the seasonal readiness guide, the Nothing Bundt updates, which is kind of a newsletter. And then we get into position training, new from L&D. So if it's not on the banner and it's from L&D, we kind of put it down here, including webinar recordings or webinar signups. Mm-hmm. We have questions. Some of these we put on here to answer kind of frequently asked questions, but like here, this one, what breakout topics would you like to see? This is where we're actually asking people, hey, submit the questions you want to see, and we can actually see which questions people are upvoting, so we can answer those, maybe have those topics at our conference later this year. Quick access. These are just kind of documents that people might need to reference periodically. Commonly used playlists are more similar to that, but they're more operationally based. Mm-hmm. We have a frequently asked questions section, and then just what's new. We find a lot of people just go down here to see what's new. Then they click on these, as they're either finished what they got on to Gather Round to do, which is what we call our Thrive portal, Gather Round, because when you have a cake, you gather around. Nice. And so
is that why? I never knew that. I've just learned something. There we go.
There you go.
I did wonder why it was called Gather Round. Perfect. And I guess it's important to note as well, the blocks and the content that people see is all dependent based upon audience membership. So somebody in a certain role or franchise or region might see something different depending on that experience.
Yeah, a good example of that is the quick access. A lot of these are for owners only, and so only they will see this content. But some of them for our managers, type people. But then like this common playlist, this is more or less open to everybody. Nice. But there might be a piece or two there. But yeah, so if some sections, people just won't see it all if they don't have access. But a lot of it, some people see everything, some people don't.
Let's dive into an example of a pathway. So pathways, I guess, are how you structure content together, you group it together, and you assign it out to an audience so you can ensure they've done it and track it. Should we jump into one of them?
Sure. So we have pathways, which we call, it's the same tool, but pathways we're referencing to training. We also use the same tool and call them playlist when it's just content that's not necessarily training a person through a position. So as I mentioned, in our old LMS, sometimes only owners that had access, and they would train their teams through the portal, but they didn't have accounts. And so there was no way to see who had done what. Sure. So we still had some people did it the other way, though, where they actually created accounts for their team, which was allowed, but maybe just not encouraged on the old system. And so we had people that had certifications, but maybe not accounts. Well, in order to bring everyone together and get people closer to the same page, all of our training is open to anyone. It makes it easier to cross-train. It makes it easier to just maybe explore. But we're going to look at the Baker content here. And everyone can see all the training except for the certification. And they're assigned the certification based on the role they have in the point of sale with that integration that Anna Marie mentioned. But shift 1 is culture and food safety. So they go through these 2 pathways that are actually inside this pathway just to kind of get onboarded with what we're about and what we do. And then you go into the actual baking shifts, and they print out their baker position guide. They complete some tasks, like a bakery tour, take some courses, and then complete the workbook they have in person. So it's combined learning, both online and in person. And then you have shift 3, kind of more of the same. You have some more tasks, some more training, and a job aid. And then finally, if you're assigned the position, which they can do either through the POS, or of course owners can assign training themselves, they take the certification.
And then talk to me about the tasks then. So I guess you're using tasks to allow people to demonstrate competency when they're doing their onboarding journey, right? So how does that work? They upload some evidence and then the manager gets involved?
We use them several ways. Like this first one, if not provided, download and print the baker position training guide. If we just had the training guide here, maybe they wouldn't know that they could download that and print it out and use it as a workbook. But then we have some that actually requires a manager. Take a baking department tour. Well, obviously, you can't do that on your own. Someone has to help you, give you a tour. You're not going to know what everything is if it's your first day. And so those require a manager approval. And then we just have kind of instructionary, complete the relevant workbook to make sure you're following up on that different type of learning. Because some people might learn it by just watching the courses or going through them. And then some people learn by writing it out in the workbook and filling it out.
Yeah. And then the content within these pathways, then some stuff you're producing internally. You know, you've got an amazing team, Preston and the wider team, who are producing amazing content. Some might be user-generated in these pathways, or would you avoid kind of user-generated content?
Currently, we don't have user-generated content in our training pathways.
And then do you have external content that you put in? Anything you procure?
We do have external content. If I go back to the homepage and go to our learning content, like learning campaigns, we started with the New Year, New You.
Nice.
And this was stuff from the Content Hub through Thrive. A little introductory video by me there, some PDFs, some courses through the Content Hub, and then we actually have a YouTube video from Simon Sinek, just because I like Simon Sinek.
I thought you were going to jump into the video of you there, the New Year, New You, but you
No, we've got enough of me already.
And then talk to me about communication then. Like, I know we're talking a lot about learning here, right? But I think one of the things that you've done quite nicely is try to unify learning and communication and knowledge into a system that people can access the things that they need to do to be successful and serve customers. How does comms work for you?
So the standard comms, Anne-Marie, do you want to say something?
I think you got it, and then I'm going to jump in. Go ahead.
All right. So our standard communication is called the Nothing Bundt Updates, and it's basically a newsletter format, and it's basically the same as it was on our old LMS. We are kind of moving toward more video content, and even the communications team has put out a video or two. We will also put out just kind of communication videos from our CEO, Dolph, or updates through webinars, and we have a recording of webinar here in a playlist, and it's broken out into chapters so you go exactly to the part you want. All different ways to make the content they need to operate Nothing Bundt Cakes readily accessible.
Amazing. And then
Josh, one of the other things I just think is so wonderful about the communications is because of the way we're able to set up audiences. As you might imagine, sometimes in our business, we have a group of bakeries who are doing something unique from the rest of the system. So for example, if we're testing a new flavor or we're testing something operationally, and they may need access to a set of communications or instructions or even training that we don't necessarily want the rest of the brand to get confused by yet or aren't ready for yet, we are able to communicate with just that particular group by audience. And we've even been leveraging that push notification option for the communication so that they're alerted when there's something special just for them. They get that through the app on their phone, or they get that in their email. And that's been really successful for us.
And what would you say the percentage split is app versus the web in terms of usage? Is it more skewed to the web experience, or is it more app driven in franchising?
I think it's mostly the web experience through the website with a probably small but growing people using the app. We do have some operators that have tablets in the bakeries. And so when they do that, we recommend they have 2 tablets, kind of one is a manager tablet or training tablet, and one is kind of a position tablet. So we actually have tools where they can access how to decorate the cake right in the app or right on Thrive or Gather Round. We also have, of course, our recipes and stuff like that they can follow along with in the LMS as well.
And what's some of the impact you've seen? I know it's sometimes hard to measure the true impacts, and you haven't been live for years and years and years yet. But what's some of the initial responses, things that you're seeing when you're speaking to operators and people in the franchises themselves? Like, have you got any data to point to that?
Yes, we're working on all the analytics to be able to put those hard numbers behind that, as we've just been live since August. But anecdotally, as we're talking with operators and we're visiting in the bakery, I'm hearing comments about how fast it is to find what they need, and they can leverage that search field and get those keywords to exactly the document or the resource they're looking for, or that video. The other thing that we're seeing a lot and hearing a lot about is the video content and how appreciated that is, particularly to your point earlier, trying to hold that standard. It helps to see what excellence looks like. And I think they're enjoying the new way content is being produced and being able to be accessed very quickly. And the other thing that we're hearing a lot about is we have a university that, thanks to leveraging Thrive's content, we're able to provide at no cost to our team members as a benefit and perk for their career growth. And so we're able to offer all kinds of other learning that is great for life, great for work, great for their career. And that is also there within the tool itself. So not only are they getting their bakery operations and their important communications for day-to-day business, but they can come here when they want to do some exploratory learning.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we're just going to start to wrap up. So if there are any comments in the chat, feel free to pop them in. My next question, I suppose, is what's next? Like, you've done a lot with the platform so far. It's landed well. Usage is looking great. Like, where do you see the next kind of 6 to 12 months heading with the platform in terms of what you might want to do next?
Great question. So we were pretty deliberate in our rollout plan and making sure we were taking a phased approach. And this next phase is probably the most fun and exciting for us because it's the engagement and adoption phase. So now that we have everybody in our platform, we've gotten through the integration, we'll continue to refine that to help with the way that our bakery teams are structured. But really, it's about getting that user access and making sure that they can come in for whatever position they need quickly, find what they want. We're having contests, we're having incentives, we're thinking about swag and ways to reinforce all the learning and the engagement with the platform. We're going to be able to leverage more webinar-based content, communities of learning. So really, we just, the next part gets very fun, and we get to do a lot of things that we just really didn't have an opportunity to reach the broader population prior to the tool.
Love that. And Eric, what about you? Anything that you're looking forward to or you're going to be doing next?
Well, one thing I'm doing all year, and I've already kind of touched on it a bit, is our learning campaigns. We had the New Year in January. Before that, we had a test campaign in December, November called Keeping Out the Cold. That was all about team engagement. We're really busy during the holidays, of course, cake being kind of group food a lot of times. And so that was really kind of our test run. You can see we had 348. That was only a few months after we had launched. Then you can see for the New Year campaign, we had 1,200 views on that. So this is something I'm doing 10 months this year. We're going to have a learning campaign. As you saw, the current one is Black History Month. Next month is going to be about stress. And so this is just a way we can hopefully make people better through a little bitty type of learning that's not going to take a long time. They're 5 minutes, or they download a PDF and do it on their own time. And just a way to create engagement. And this is all stuff that we have viewability for that we never really would have even probably attempted on the old LMS because we didn't have that visibility.
Brilliant. Makes sense. Yeah, the campaigns are great as well in terms of spacing that content out and nudging people at the right time to really drive them back into the platform. There is one question here from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, for that. Not sure who wants to answer it. But with such a large frontline staff headcount, how do you onboard and offboard from the platform? Is it a manual user creation process or automated?
take that.
Okay.
So it's automated. So that's the integration with our point of sale. Sometimes the point of sale data can be a little messy, but actually for our frontline people, it's pretty clean. Where it gets messier is where we get into management access, and different operators, being a franchise system, will organize their leadership in different ways that maybe is not as standardized as it would be if we were all company owned. But for frontline people, it's very easy. They're assigned a role, and once they clock in on their account is created in Gather Round with that certification assigned for the position that they have in the point of sale. If they get another position in the point of sale, say they start out as a froster, but then they're also added in as a baker, well, then that baker certification is added in as well. And of course, all the base training is open to everyone.
Nice. That sounds good. And Ryan, I know you're in Canada. The team are not a million miles for you, and definitely be happy to connect with you. I think you might use Thrive yourself, so that's positive. But I'm going to leave it there unless there are any questions, because I know everyone's super busy. Any final questions coming through? I think we're good. Perfect. Anything else from you, Eric, Anna Marie? Words of wisdom, things to share based on your journey so far? Because I know a lot of people listening will be going through the journey that you've been on.
Eric, you want to take it?
Sure. I was just saying, hey, it's been really great. We launched in August, so we're coming on our first year here in a few months. And what I really love to see is that Thrive isn't being a stagnant system. They're adding improvements and new tools we can use all the time. And that's great. Not just the same thing, and that creates excitement for me, which then I can hopefully extend to our community.
Amazing. I appreciate that. And you've been a great partner as well. Like, really challenge our thinking, which is good. We can add lots of new features into the product, which kind of help frontline workers, right? Because it's definitely a core area for us. So look, thank you again, both, for jumping on. Stay warm. I know it's snowing in Texas today, which is probably quite weird.
It is very strange.
and we will speak very soon. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining, and take care.
Great. Thanks for having us. Bye, everyone.